listening to another edition of Irish Wrestle Talk. Well, wow, what a weekend to unpack. Between WWE Clash at the Castle and the Euros kicking off to my trip to Rebel County Wrestling in Cork City, not to mention Father's Day. It was a busy one for sure. The WWE, well, what can I say? We should all know by now it's next to impossible to predict what they're going to do in their premium live events, as Clash at the Castle threw up a few surprises. I haven't been able to watch it in full just yet, but from some of the highlights and news about it, it looks to have been a decent event. A few botches here and there, but wow, I have to say, I was full sure Drew was going to get the job done and wasn't expecting the screw job from CM Punk. Although when you unpackage it, it makes total sense and really only adds to the spice, I guess, between these two leading into the second half of the year. Alba Fire and Isla Dawn, well, congratulations to the two local ladies on their win, and well deserved. But by all accounts, it looks as though this match was perhaps wrapped up a little bit quickly. Now, I'm not sure whether this had something to do with some reports I've seen about Jade Cargill and a few mistakes throughout this match. But either way, it was nice to see the outcome, even if I did think Jade and Bianca would remain as champs for a while yet. And now it remains to be seen how this will play out, as I'm sure the WWE ultimately want a feud between Cargill and Belair. Bayley winning was expected, and Piper put on a great showing overall, but we didn't really expect Bayley to lose here. But Gable and Sammy, that seemed to be a good match. I did think that Chad would get the belt here, but the storyline with himself and Otis is brewing up nicely, and Gable then, he's also re-signed with the WWE, so there's plenty to come here. It's going to be an interesting one to see what happens with Sammy and where he goes and who he feuds with. And then kicking off the show was Cody versus AJ, with Cody getting the win as expected, and the questions as to whether he could get down and dirty when needed were also answered here with how the match ended and the manner in which he got AJ to quit. But definitely showing there is a possible heel in there somewhere in Cody if they ever decide to take that turn with him. The crowd seemed jacked up throughout, possibly not on the levels of France, but decent event overall. Now, this takes me to Saturday evening and the Rebel County Wrestling RCW event in the PAV in Cork City, called Say Hello to My Little Friend, where I attended for the first time, and I have to say, I really enjoyed this one. Let me just say that whatever expectations I had going into this, they went right out the window, as this was a phenomenal experience from start to finish. And I got to hang out with the lads from Wrestle Slam podcast, Jerry and Phil, and fair play lads, it was a pleasure. And for anyone that's never been to the PAV, it's a lovely little intimate venue where you get right up close to the action. And the drink is flowing and the crowd is really, really fired up with the chants of RC Dub throughout. And it's quite an interactive event overall, which, only adds to the fun. And the card was quite stacked for 3 hours of craziness. And the matches had some explosive spots as well. So the host for the night / master of ceremonies is the babyface Luke Barry, who also doubles up as commentator for the night, and the recent appointment of general manager Rory O'Hagan, he was there as well, and both guys did a stellar job getting the crowd hyped up. So as this was new ground for me, let's take a look at the card for the night. So for the interim RCW Championship match, originally this was billed to be the current champ of Owen Richards versus Flash Morgan Webster. But because the two guys are currently carrying injuries, the announcement was made for Andy Steele to step in here and his opponent was announced on the night as CBL, who's a Longford native but a very popular figure in Irish wrestling circles. And this only tells part of the story though, which I'll get into a bit later, as this was the main event of the night. But to kick things off, we had the RCW Rebel X Championship match with the champion Robbie X versus Mark Haskins versus Martin Steers versus Fabio. And this was a wonderful match to kick off the night with. All of the guys can mix it up nicely with their high-flying manoeuvres and their fast, crisp styles. And I was very surprised with the hits these lads were taking, and was happy enough I hadn't taken a seat right at ringside as well, as I have been moving out of the way quite a lot to accommodate their theatrics to the outside. But after a thrilling match, Mark Haskins got the win here, making Robbie X tap out, and he was crowned the new Rebel X champion. Next up on the night was an interesting encounter between Raven Creed and Steve Savage. I was looking forward to this one, as I'd seen a bit of Raven in the past, and she's quite the unique character and very talented. And this looked to be a grudge match. Raven was originally set to face off against Billy Bedlam, but for some unforeseen circumstances, Billy couldn't compete. So Steve was drafted in, and him and Raven go back a long way with their issues. And Jesus, lads, this one was one hell of an encounter. Steve Savage is a beast of a bloke, to put it lightly, and you'd want to be crazy to mix it up with him. And I believe a Limerick man to boot as well. But that didn't put Raven off, and she got stuck in the Falls Count Anywhere match. And I was very impressed with her showing throughout. She got to work chopping the bejesus out of Steve in the corner. Chops to even rival the great Ric Flair. This was a really physical match with neither of them holding back, and I even got a mouthful of water spat all over the back of my neck from Steve. Delightful. But I wasn't going to complain about it. The guy is one scary dude. But luckily, Raven took care of business, and with the help of some maniacal, Joker-esque clowns, she picked up the win, and she slapped the taste out of his mouth a fair bit throughout as well. And I have to say, this lady is very, very impressive. She's a young talent, and I feel she could go a long way if she wants to. Definitely one to watch for the future for sure. And next up on the night, we had Strong Style of Chris Conley and Reardon O'Connor facing off against the party Hardys of Session Mott, Martina and Katie Harvey. And this was also a really entertaining encounter. Katie Harvey is a pure powerhouse and a real talent. And I know Session Mott is a well-known star too in her own right. But like the previous match, it was interesting to see the dynamics between male and female in this encounter. And it didn't disappoint. The women can really hold their own here, and we had some great spots once again throughout, and some real surprises, and a dance-off in the ring to finish it off as well for good measure. So very entertaining bout. Which led us then to the next one, the RCW tag team battle between the Bearded Beauties, who were coming in as champs, versus More Money, More Problems, featuring Debbie Keitel, versus the Good, the Bide and the Ugly. Cracking match, this one. And I have to say, the entrance from More Money, More Problems is probably worth the entrance fee alone here. I even had the misfortune of having Gene Money rubbing up against me at one stage. But once again, delightful, of course. But the man does like to gyrate, what can I say? We had tables involved in this one as well, as Jay Money was made bits of through one of the tables at one stage, meaning Debbie had to step in. And it was a real hard-hitting battle as well. And I'm sure some of the lads were feeling rough Sunday morning. But More Money came out on top in this one. And we saw the introduction then of the first RCW trio belts, which was great. And then next up on the night was the King of Irish Wrestling bout, with some really interesting characters involved here. And I even had Ilyan Zarkov giving me abuse from the ring at the start of this. And It reminded me a lot of a Money in the Bank encounter. It was fast and furious, and we saw the debut of Kuro the Kid, a really exciting wrestler with a lot of ability. And after a mental match here, Phil Boyd was victorious, and he's now the new king of the ring, and he got his crown and so on at the end. So quite an entertaining one, which led us then to the penultimate match of the night, which was Rose Tinted Glasses versus the Sem and Mr. Charlie. And for me, seeing Mr. Charlie for the first time, I found this absolutely hilarious with the What's in the Box segment. Very, very funny. And this was a really good match, and Rose Tinted came out on top of this one. And then the final match of the night led us to the main event, which I alluded to earlier. Andy Steele facing off against CBL. And this turned out to be a really dangerous looking encounter, so much so that after a bump to the outside of the ring, CBL got a bad gash over his eye, and we had the ambulance guys coming down to deal with that, which meant he couldn't continue with the match. And I thought this was it for the night then, and that everything would be coming to an end. But out comes Mark Haskins to take over. And after a brilliant performance, he picked up his second title of the night, making Andy tap out in the centre of the ring. So there you have it. Mark Haskins, double champ, RCW Rebel X and interim champion. Quite an achievement and a really good night's work as well. Special mention has to go to the ref on the night, Brock Refner, as he had quite a busy night controlling all of the mental action overall. But I have to say, guys, it's a shame to say this was my first RCW event. And it's looking as though the next one is penciled in for the 20th of July. That's going to be called -1. So I hope to be making up for lost time and attending this one also. But look, watching this on YouTube or wherever you watch doesn't do it any justice whatsoever. The promotion is bursting with talent. And if any of you get a chance at all, you need to go and you need to experience it in person, as you get the added bonus of visiting the beautiful Cork City and the lovely PAV venue. There's friendly people everywhere, and you certainly will not regret it. RCW needs more exposure for the levels of talent and production that they're throwing out there all the time. And that goes for all the Irish promotions, which I'm hoping to make my way to and visit in the coming months, starting with No Limit Summer Bash on July the 7th in the Moat Theatre in Naas, County Kildare. So here's to the next event. And once again, folks, thanks for joining me on this episode of Irish Wrestle Talk. And as always, if you enjoy the content, then follow, subscribe, like, share, do whatever. And you can find me across all of the socials as well, or reach out to me on irishwrestletalk.com. I'm always happy to collaborate or have a guest on. And until next time, guys, take care, but remember to keep grappling with greatness.